There are times, certainly in my own practice and when we're working with patients and clients, where we turn up the Newbie to a point where it purposefully, intentionally pushes somebody outside of their comfort zone. And in that moment, I know I've had the experience, my brain is telling me to stop, to run away, to turn down the machine, to scream and yell at somebody, to do something just to try to make it stop. And when I'm able to breathe through that and move through that, I build that doing hard things muscle just a little bit, and I learn that I can silence that voice, or I can work through that voice of my brain, its fear response, and it telling me to panic or to stop or to quit.
I'm Garrett Salpeter, and I believe that the most powerful and transformative way to help people recover from pain and injury, heal from trauma, and reach their highest levels of fitness and performance is to focus on the nervous system. In this podcast, we'll share knowledge from the frontiers of neuroscience and inspirational stories of how applying that knowledge has empowered people from all walks of life to heal, adapt, and grow.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Undercurrent podcast. Today, I was inspired to come on and talk with you about a topic that I find very important and interesting, and I hope you do too, and I call it doing hard things. Very simple. But I was inspired to come on and share these thoughts with you because I've been reading Dave Asprey's new book called Fast This Way. It's about fasting, and he describes a lot of the health benefits of fasting. He also describes a lot of the psychological and spiritual benefits of fasting, and it's this really interesting scenario, this common theme that I see in a lot of other really valuable activities that involves really being able to quiet that voice inside of us, or being able to push through when that voice inside, in fasting tells us to eat, and we power through it, we override, we build that doing hard things muscle, or also known as willpower. But it's really important because cultivating that ability to work through temporary discomfort to achieve a larger long-term goal is just really important. And reading the book, it reminded me of a few other practices that I've had in my routine at various times, and I just really wanted to share those with you and share some of the ways that they've helped me and some of the insights I had when reflecting on this, and hope it's helpful. Before we dive into some of those actual strategies, I just want to give a little bit of context. So first, neuroscience-wise, the brain, we know the brain, its number one priority is to protect us. Our brain limits us. Our brain, makes sure we don't move too fast or stretch too far so we don't get injured, because if we're injured, then we're vulnerable to being attacked by a predator. Our brain triggers a sensation of pain to get us to not load certain areas of the body if they're injured, or even to get us to change our behavior or change something if the source of pain is psychological or something that, quote unquote, should not hurt. And a lot of this is based on fear, that the brain causes us to experience fear as a protective mechanism so we don't go too far. And the issue is that sometimes that protective mechanism is set too conservatively. Like, it's useful for us to not, jump off of a building from 20 stories. If we feel fear, like a fear of heights around that, that's useful, that's protective. But feeling fear of like starting a new business or putting out a book or a podcast or something like that, sometimes that's a fear of failure, or maybe a fear of success, the fear of if I'm successful. I think we understand the fear of failure, but the fear of success is like, if I'm successful, will I be able to keep it up, or are people going to ask more of me? Can I do it? So there's legitimate fears of success as well. And so, fear and brain function are some of the underlying themes here in terms of the neuroscience. And then in terms of the strategies, fasting is absolutely one. Another one that I like for building this doing hard things muscle is using the Newbie. And there are times, certainly in my own practice and when we're working with patients and clients, where we turn up the Newbie to a point where it purposefully, intentionally pushes somebody outside of their comfort zone. And in that moment, I know I've had the experience, my brain is telling me to stop, to run away, to turn down the machine, to scream and yell at somebody, to do something just to try to make it stop. And when I'm able to breathe through that and move through that, I build that doing hard things muscle just a little bit, and I learn that I can silence that voice, or I can work through that voice of my brain, its fear response, and it telling me to panic or to stop or to quit. Also, if we're holding squat or lunge or push-up positions for minutes at a time, that same voice comes back. You got to quit. You got to stop. this is dangerous, you could get hurt. And being able to push through that to achieve that time goal, or to just push beyond whatever our brain currently is telling us we can or should do. There's a lot of value in that. Also, swimming in cold water in the winter. Here in Austin, we're in the season right now where it's actually starting to warm up. So the pool is 52 degrees this morning. I went in there and did it, but there were a couple months where it's down in the low 40s. And initially, when I started going in, I was getting really anxious before going in. It was hard to even do it. And then when I got in, I would panic, and my brain would tell me to get out, or panic breathe. And just being able to calm my breath, being able to do it consistently, has also built up that muscle. And then also some of the breathing practices. I'm reminded the same voice of wanting to quit, or the same type of responses. It's so interesting in some of the breathing practices that I've been doing. So if you're watching the video, you can see I have this relaxator. It's a device that looks like a pacifier. If you're listening, just take my word for it. It looks like a little pacifier that goes in the mouth. So I'll do this sometimes while I'm driving, and I don't necessarily recommend this, for safety reasons, but I've done it, so I'll share it with you. So I'll be driving, and I'll breathe in normally through my nose, and then I'll be breathing out through this device, and it has a very narrow opening, so it dramatically slows down the rate at which I'm able to breathe out. And so it reduces breathing volume, helps me build up higher CO2 levels. And when CO2 levels reach a certain point, that's what triggers us to breathe. And so as they go beyond that, that's where the brain starts to feel panic, like if you're holding your breath and your brain is telling you to breathe, 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 breathe. And so being able to go into that point where my brain starts to sound the alarm bells, and it's so interesting. Like the car will start to feel like it's getting smaller, and I feel claustrophobic, and my clothes feel like they're fitting tight, as I'm really holding my breath these extra few seconds. And I start to feel warm. I feel like I need to open the window. I feel like I need to gasp for air. And, I go through that a few seconds, and then take my next breath, and it all goes away, and I feel, a little bit euphoric even. And so it's being able to push through that has many, many health benefits, but it also builds that doing hard things muscle. And these strategies I really like, and I found that they've helped me. And just to kind of tie it into, what's the point? Upon reflection, I've seen ways where these have actually helped me in other areas of my life. And a couple that came to mind that I thought were interesting. One is that when we first came on the scene with the Newbie, there were some more established medical device companies that were threatened by us, tried to bully us. One tried to file a bullshit, pardon my language, but lawsuit against us, and we had to fight. And I had to spend a lot of time and money and effort and aggravation to fight that. But it was one of those things where I actually was able to kind of fall back on some of these other experiences I had as an athlete and some of these other practices. And I really was able to convince myself and say with conviction, okay, this is an example of temporary discomfort that I have to go through, and it's worth it for the long term. You know what? Because on the other side of this, there's the long-term opportunity to make a tremendous impact on the world, to do all the things that we're doing with NeuFit and the Newbie. And you know what? I can tough it out. I can make it through this. And so to be able to have those experiences really gave me the conviction to make it through that. Other times, generally, both in our clinic with COVID and historically and things, when sales numbers are down and other challenges have occurred, when we failed, and of course, as a leader, I take responsibility for that, for that failure or for us not hitting our targets. Those moments, they suck, and I have to figure out. And it's not just me with the answers, right? It's our team as well, but have to figure out, okay, well, what can we do to get through it? And we have to know that going through these tough times, we have faith that we can get through it because we've done it before. It's that same type of dynamic. Another example, this is one that's almost tough for me to admit, but I had a team member who was, actually, come to find out, was really trying to subvert me. And he was I didn't really know that until the end, or maybe I should have, but I just had this kind of thorn in my side, and it took me a while to cultivate the strength to be able to end the relationship, do the right thing, and being able to rely on or kind of reflect on the experience of some of these practices actually helped give me strength to do it. Not only the strength to do it, but also the like understanding that I am important, our business that it was important, that we're worth fighting for, and all of that. It took a lot to kind of rally the gumption to make that decision, and again, pushing through the temporary pain of doing that. Now I see how much better everything is going. It just validates 100% it was absolutely the right decision, and I just that really stands out to me. Times actually, I was kind of referring to myself earlier as well. Other example of launching a podcast, my book. Those are examples where I had some fear, but I was able to identify it and work through it and do these things in large part because of these previous experiences of knowing that if people don't like it, if I'm criticized, if whatever, like knowing that I can get through those hard times and know that there's something better on the other end. So I hope that this resonated with you in some way, can help you on your journey in some way. 2 quick points I want to mention. One is, I recognize that some people have a lot of hard things in their lives. There's single parents working 2 jobs to support their children. If they're already doing hard things, and I want to just acknowledge that, talking about going and swimming in the backyard pool is hard, yes, but can be a little artificial for people who have much harder circumstances. Just want to acknowledge and share a lot of respect and admiration for people who are really working through those types of circumstances, and just know that you're flexing that muscle every day. Also, one other note is that willpower is a finite resource. So just like muscles get fatigued, willpower gets fatigued. So if you're fasting, training hard, doing a lot of cold exposure, you may not have as much willpower or mental capacity for other things. You might have a short fuse with less patience. You might make poor decisions, not perform as well in other areas. So those are just something to be aware of. You got to balance out those stressors. And if any of this resonates with you, I would encourage you to, whether it's fasting, just a quick review, whether it's fasting, whether it's cold water exposure, whether it's various breathing exercises like air hunger drills, or training yourself to hold your breath for longer, whether something on the Newbie or pushing yourself a little harder in your own training. I encourage you to pick one of these things this week and try to intentionally push yourself outside your comfort zone and train your doing hard things muscle. Lots of love. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye for now.
If you're ready to supercharge your practice, listen to this. Garrett and Team NeuFit have just released a new online course entitled Introduction to the NeuFit Method. In this detailed 8-hour course, you'll gain mastery of the fundamental techniques in our practice, including muscle testing and activations, nerve glides, and joint articulations. You'll also get introduced to our patented direct current stimulation device, the Newbie, an incredible machine that's empowered professionals just like you to help their patients heal, adapt, and grow faster than they ever thought possible. To learn more, go to www.neu.fit/learn.
Thank you so much for listening to the Undercurrent podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date as we release future episodes.